Okay, so this video will provide the viewer with a little bit more information about what is expected within the discussion part of a lab report. Now, the discussion itself should always be initiated with a summary of the main findings. Now, even though the results were described in some detail in the results section, they should be briefly reviewed here. Now, this portion of the discussion section need not be longer than a short paragraph. The next step is to relate these findings back to your original predictions, and in turn what this means in terms of the question you were originally trying to answer. So for the example of the student and the report on screen, we'd be looking for evidence of the creatine and its effects on the repeated sprint performance. Then from here, the report should look at the theoretical implications to the findings. Questions need to be asked such as, do these results support, contradict, extend or qualify the previous findings? The implication of each of the major findings should be discussed in this area. It is particularly important to link the findings obtained in the study being described with those of other researchers. So the reader should be told how the researchers' findings fit into the available literature of the topic and what the implications of these findings could be. Speculation could also be offered to explain the data if they are not consistent with other research. So therefore is an expectation of the student to find appropriate literature within the environment to ensure a valid argument could be formulated. The next step within the discussion should concentrate on the weaknesses of the study, and you need to ask yourself, are there or were there any factors that could have been improved? Now, when bringing up criticisms of your study in the discussion, relate what you say to the conclusions you drew. So how could the particular point you bring up undermine the conclusions you draw? If it cannot, then it is not a useful criticism within your study, so therefore don't include it. Just because a variable you did not control, e.g. an individual difference between people or materials or variables, could influence the dependent variable, it doesn't mean that there is a problem within your study. If you bring up a problem, explain why it is a problem. Again, support these reasonings or arguments with relevant literature, and then suggest some areas for future research based on what you found. Now, as you can see within the example in front of me, there is evidence to suggest that these arguments have been validated and consolidated. I'm just going to highlight some areas here. So an indication here is the student highlighting some of the major findings and then supporting those major findings with relevant appropriate literature support. Not only that, this initial literature support here by Mercado et al. Has been further supported by another source, which again demonstrates an in-depth investigation and argument. Within this area again, there needs to be evidence of how the data and results collected relate to the wider population based on the sample that you used, and whether the data and results can be generalized to the wider population.